6 p.m. If we would, let's stand and pledge allegiance, and God give the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's remain standing. Again, our kind and Heavenly Father, we come thank you for this day. We thank you for watching over our lives, and we ask that you continue to watch over those that have experienced the devastating things that they experienced with the tropical storm, hurricane that came through the mountain areas of Asheville and Boone and places of that nature. A lot of people lost their homes. A lot of people lost family members. We ask that you continue to watch over them, keep them safe, and keep your people being disciples and continue to help those people make it through those times. Lord, it could have easily been Chester County. It could have been us. It could have been us. We could have been the ones that lost our homes. We could have been the ones that lost family members. We could have been the ones that trying to figure out what we're going to eat, where we're going to go. But you just looked out for us again. And we ask that you continue to do that. Continue to watch over this county. These and all of the things, I ask in your son Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, God. All right, having the approval of the minutes, under September the 16th, 2024 council meeting minutes. Need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion, we approve September 16th, 2024 council minutes.
Need a second?
Second.
Second. All right, got a motion and a second. Any discussion or correction? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right, and also September the 23rd, 2024 council meeting, workshop meetings. Need a motion on that?
I'll move that we approve the September 23rd workshop minutes as presented.
All right, need a second?
Second.
Need any questions or corrections? Okay, I wasn't at that meeting, so I was on vacation, so I won't be voting on this. So, all in favor of accepting the September 23rd workshop meeting, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. All except myself on that one. Okay, number 4 on the agenda is citizens' comments. We didn't have any. And okay, under 5, public hearing. The third reading of ordinance 2024-14, pages 10 through 11, an ordinance amending ordinance 2022-10, which amends the ordinance number 2021-16 to provide for the designation and expenditures of unallocated ARPA funds and providing for other related matters. Anybody like to speak to that as a public hearing? Hearing none, we'll go on then. Okay? Ordinance and resolutions and proclamations. The third reading of ordinance 2024-14, pages 10 through 11, in accordance amending ordinance 2022-10, which amends the ordinance of number 2021-16 to provide for the designation and expenditure of unallocated ARPA funds and providing for other related matters. Need a motion on that.
I move that we approve third reading of ordinance 2024-14.
Need a motion, second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the third reading of ordinance 2024-14, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Okay, B, the second reading of ordinance 2024-15, page 12, to adopt various international and standard codes relating to inspection activities and enforcement of the building provisions. Need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion, we approve second reading of ordinance 2024-15.
Need a second?
Second.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on that? All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Unanimous vote. Thank you. Under C, the first reading of ordinance 2024-16, pages 13 through 15, an ordinance authorizing the Chester Fire District, South Carolina, to issue general obligation bonds in the principal amount not exceeding $935,000 and providing for other related matters.
Make a motion, we approve ordinance 2024-16 for the Chester Fire District.
Okay, need a second?
I make a motion that we approve first reading of ordinance 2024-16 for the Chester Fire District not to exceed $935,000.
Okay, you got a motion, need a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Second from Ms. Mosley. All right, any questions or comments on that?
Yes. Can our county administrator elaborate on this a little bit for the public?
So actually, I'm going to call Mr. Kozlarek up to discuss this, but basically, I'm going to give a quick comment on it, that the city of Chester had satisfied their last, I'm sorry, not city of Chester, Chester Fire District had satisfied their last bond that was taken out, I think, 10 years ago for a truck. And so they are in need of another truck, and basically they're requesting another bond. They're going to use the fund balance that they have. They're going to use the financing option Mr. Kozlarek will talk about. And at the end of the day, the net to the taxpayers within that district will be none, if any, in the very late years. So I'll let Mr. Kozlarek explain.
Mr. Hester already said.
You're welcome.
He doesn't have a JD yet. He doesn't have a
The only thing I'll add two things. One, the current version of the ordinance that is in front of you has the date that originally the Chester Fire District was going to meet and presumed to approve as the last week in September. That meeting actually happened last week because of the hurricane. So that date will be reflected as changed in the second reading and third reading. The other thing I will note, which is a little unusual, and this is actually item D, but I figured I'd go ahead and cover C and D so you didn't have to hear from me twice. D reflects a resolution that the council is being asked to approve calling for a public hearing. That is a little unusual for the county. Typically, your public hearings are just done as a matter of course at every either second or third reading, depending on the schedule. The way the statute works with respect to borrowing for a special purpose district, the statute actually specifically says that the governing body of the county has to approve a resolution calling for a public hearing. It's very formulaic and sort of old school, if you will, but that's why there is a separate resolution actually calling for a public hearing rather than just it happening on your agenda, kind of like you had just a few moments ago for another public hearing. The only other comment I will make is to reiterate two things that Mr. Hester said. One is there was a borrowing done approximately 10 years ago for a fire truck. That bond has been retired. So the taxpayers should actually see their millage go down a few mills this year. There is a fund balance in the debt service account with the fire district, so we anticipate that next year and a portion of the following year would offset a millage increase, so that next year it is very unlikely that the Chester Fire District, and remember this is the fire district, not the county and not the city, very unlikely that the fire district would have an increase at all next year and would have some of an increase the following year. And then the third tax cycle would go back essentially to what the millage was 3 tax cycles earlier before the current, I say current, before the last bond was paid off. And so again, there should be some increase, but it would be a slow increase over those 3 years, plus or minus.
Would you reflect on that the Chester Fire District is a true special purpose district created by the legislature, not by this county council?
That is correct. And it also is not a county-wide millage impact. This is only within the fire district that is actually served with those fire services. So it is not general obligation of the county, and therefore the county's entire citizenry are not going to be impacted with any millage increase.
Thank you.
All right, any more questions or comments?
Oh, may I,
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman,
sure.
may
Go ahead,
you,
Mr.
would the
Conlon.
council indulge me for 1 minute? I am wearing pink tonight. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I am an ambassador for Real Men Wear Pink. Please consider as you go throughout the month that you may want to donate to breast cancer awareness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, all in favor of the first reading of the ordinance 2024-16, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote, thank you. All right, moving on to D, far as the resolution 2024-11, ordering a public hearing on the question of issuing general obligation bonds by the Chester Fire District, South Carolina, in pursuit of Title VI, Chapter 11, Code of Laws of South Carolina of 1976, as amended, and other related matters. Need a motion on that?
I make a motion that we approve the resolution 2024-11 for the Chester Fire District for Title VI, Chapter 11, Code of Laws in the state of South Carolina.
All right, need a second on that?
I'll second.
Got a second from Mr. Guy. Any questions or comments on that? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Unanimous vote, thank you. Okay, at this time, we're gonna have a proclamation honoring all Chester County firefighters and proclaiming October the 2024 as Fire Prevention Month. This time, I'll ask Mr. Cale Benson, and Mr. T.J. Carter, and Ms. Mary Cole to come forward. Good representation here. So at this time, I'd like to read a proclamation honoring all Chester County firefighters and proclaiming October the 24th as Fire Prevention Month. Whereas the month of October 2024 is designated as Fire Prevention Month to raise awareness about the importance of fire safety measures and educate the public on steps they can take to prevent fires. Whereas the fire is a significant public safety both locally and nationally. Whereas there is 1,484 homes, fire fatalities reported in the United States thus far in 2024, according to the U.S. Fire Administration. Whereas volunteers and employed firefighters in the Chester County Fire Service provide an invaluable service to our community by risking their lives to protect their fellow citizens. And whereas Chester County relies heavily on volunteer firefighters and could not provide adequate fire service to all citizens without their valiant efforts. And whereas the citizens are encouraged to participate in fire safety training and drills, fire prevention campaigns, and other initiatives aimed at improving fire safety awareness in our community. Now, therefore, I, Joe Branham, Chairman, on behalf of the Chester County Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2024 as Fire Prevention Month in Chester County. Council would like to express a heartfelt appreciation toward the firefighters of the Chester County Fire Service and their outstanding service. With honor and significant gratitude, our firefighters display unwavering dedication, bravery, and selfless service to Chester County. A special thanks to the volunteer firemen who work diligently to educate and keep our citizens safe. We urge all citizens to take active measures to prevent fires in their homes and their community. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Chester County to be fixed on this 7th day of October in the year of our Lord, 2024. Like to, we're going to accept this, thank you. Congratulations.
I just want to make sure y'all get y'all special too. Come on in here. Sure.
Come on, Mary, get up in there closer.
I'll sit over here. You got a wide angle on that?
Thank you, Council.
All right, Mr. Agee said he'd like to make a comment about this also.
This past Saturday, I went to a funeral in Batesburg, Leesville. It was a fire chief from Circle Fire Department in Saluda County. He got killed with an 18-year-old recruit running a structure fire call at 6:30 in the morning in that storm. The eulogy of that man speaks to every one of these firemen. All of you in this county were out in all of that rain and wind and storm the other day, and I saw about 1,000 people sitting there saying thank you to that man and that young man. We thank you for what you do. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All righty. Moving along to number 6, the call on Mr. Hester to give the administrative report.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, council members. And I want to talk about the Hurricane Helene for just a minute, and some of the things that transpired in our county and some of the things that are happening still today. So I want to talk about that for just a minute. Hurricane Helene started affecting Chester County late Thursday, September 26, 2024. Intensified early into Friday morning. Heavy rain and wind gusts up to 55 miles per hour brought down many trees and power lines throughout our county. Our fire department, EMA, South Carolina DOT, our roads crews, other members of our staff were out extremely early. The minute I got up, I had my radio. I turned on my radio, and, you know, I told somebody else I heard what was controlled chaos almost. But I heard more volunteer agencies and volunteer fire departments and their staff out talking about roads that were down, talking about power lines that were down, talking about roads that were washed out, and what the efforts they were taking. And I was amazed. And that went on all morning long. And so the proclamation was at a very fitting time this month, right after the hurricane, because I can tell you that while we have plenty of staff and we got DOT, we could not have done what was done during this hurricane before and after without our volunteer firefighters. And not just, and I don't want to put it all on the volunteer firefighters, but without them, we would never be able to provide fire service in our county, all the way around our county. So, you know, take the time this month to thank those volunteers, to appreciate those people who give their time freely to make sure that when you need them, that somebody is there. Very important. But I was so impressed with what I heard going on, with the people I heard on the radio and what they were doing. Duke Energy had over 50 crews assigned to Chester County working around the clock to restore power. On Friday, September 27th, Duke Energy reported that Chester had 7,320 residents without power, and Fairfield Electric reported over 2,000 residents without power, because many of our residents have Fairfield Electric as well. That number steadily came down, and by Tuesday morning, most of the power was restored. I remember seeing the first estimate, which was a regional estimate by Duke Power that they provided to our emergency management folks. And just in our region, we had over 51,000 people without power, which is pretty substantial when you take our population. And when I say a region, you know, you're talking a couple of surrounding counties, but still, just when you think about the population of Union, Fairfield, Chester, Lancaster being the biggest or most highly populated, and then into York being actually higher than Lancaster, but still, that's a lot of residents without power in this area. Our 9/11 dispatch center did an outstanding job. In the first 24 hours of the hurricane passing near Chester, our 9/11 center dispatched 650 calls. You think, well, 650 calls, you know, in the scheme of things, is that really a lot? Well, I can tell you that not only did they dispatch 650 calls, but they forwarded 250 calls for Union County residents, because Union County 911 was offline. To give you an example of how many that is, the 24 hours leading up to the storm, the day before, they dispatched 90 calls. On an average day, they dispatched 68 to 70 calls. So 650 calls during that 24-hour period. So very good job. Thank you to our 911, our sheriff's office staff for all that they did as well. Good things that happened were that, and these were things that we benefited from, that our lifelines were all working. J. Cochran Bypass never lost power for the most part on it. Food stores, restaurants, Walmart, gas stations, many of them were open. MUSC Chester was operational. The law enforcement center was operational, even though they were on generator. Our 800 megahertz radio towers stayed operational. Many of our fire stations had backup generators in place and stayed where we had the ability to have power and some where people could use water, bathrooms, and so forth. So the government complex never lost power, and we were thankful for that, even though downtown City of Chester, as well as Great Falls, had numerous power outages. Union County, just across the river, was severely damaged with the loss of cell towers or 911 operations and many emergency apparatus and their government functions. Basically, all of Union County was without power. As of this past Thursday, Union County only had 60% of its power back. Emergency Management has submitted data to the state on residential damages, and we're waiting to hear from FEMA if Chester will qualify for what we call individual assistance. And the good news is Ed actually met with people from State Emergency Management, FEMA, and then members of our disaster recovery team, which is the assessor's office. They went out and did some, basically some surveys of our county today with that group, and they took all the information, and so we'll have to await from them now, Mr. Darby, to hear if Chester County qualifies for the individual assistance. That's out of our hands, but all the work on our end is done. The FEMA is really focusing on the areas that were obviously more damaged than we are, those some to the west and north of us, many counties, and that's where the majority of the focus is. Chester County did qualify for SNAP benefit assistance to those that are on the SNAP program. So what will happen with that, if anyone is on the SNAP program, you will be, your food replacement will be done through that SNAP program. And then if the individual assistance program, if they determine that we are qualified for that and that they come back, then any family that lost food during the hurricane will qualify for that assistance. And I've seen that work in Florida. Generally, it's in very major. We had 2 hurricanes back to back in 2004. Was the only time I ever seen it come into our county in Florida. But really what happened was FEMA sets up different locations throughout your county. Your family goes in, you tell them what you lost, and they give you up to a certain amount on a card that you can use for groceries, replacement of those products. So we will let everybody know. We'll keep everybody informed. The effects of this hurricane were much greater than were forecasted. The devastation north and west obviously was much worse. But I really want to say a big thank you to those who worked through the day and the night and through the weekend, to keep us safe. I don't think Mr. Darby slept in about 2 weeks, but he has done an outstanding job of keeping me apprised and making sure that all the different entities that need to be involved have been involved and the information's getting to them. Just on a couple of side notes before I go on. Last year, we installed a generator at the airport, right, Mr. Darby, last fiscal year, 2 years ago? Okay, so it's only been installed about 2 months. Let me tell you the benefit of that generator. It kept our airport operational, and our airport was, I'll call it a hub. It was a location where aircraft that were going to, helicopters, planes that were going to the really hard-hit regions in North Carolina, western, northern, South Carolina, were stopping to get fuel and to figure out where their rally points were. And so it was, think from a logistical standpoint how important our airport, the role it played in some of the recovery efforts, just by the simple fact that we had that generator to keep our airport operational. Obviously, we were keeping close eye on Hurricane Milton. It's hitting Category 5 right now, 175 mile per hour winds, going to bear down on Tampa, go through the state of Florida. Mr. Darby and I, Mr. Joe Roberts and I, we've had several conversations today. Even though that is not forecasted to affect Chester County, we're going to make sure that we still are kind of back to operational readiness. I've seen hurricanes do weird things in many years, so we'll all just keep praying that that continues to go right through Florida and right out into the Atlantic. I talked about the rapid assessment for individual assistance that was out today, and we did reach our public assistance threshold for damage in Chester County, which means that county buildings that were damaged, roads that were damaged, labor, any overtime associated with, generators that we ran, fuel, and so forth, we will get reimbursed by FEMA for those expenses, which is very beneficial for us to receive that reimbursement. Just be aware. I told Mr. Darby, I said, if you ever, and I'm not saying anything bad about FEMA. What I'm thankful we got it, but what I'm saying is, generally when you get those reimbursements, it's not a check that's in the mail next week. You might not see those for a year or more sometimes because it takes that long to process after such a catastrophic event. So I don't want anybody saying, well, hey, we got a FEMA check coming in the mail. That could be some time off. So again, thank you to the volunteers. Thank you to all the departments and for everything. If I tried to name everybody, I'd leave someone out. But thank you for the work that was done to get Chester County back operational. Thank you to Duke Power and all the power companies that were in here working hard into the night to restore our power. I just want to follow up some things, preparations for future emergencies. This hurricane was this event was good for me to sort of take stock in what our preparedness level was, what our response, what our capabilities are, and some things that we've immediately done is we now have a generator being installed at our landfill. That will ensure that one thing you don't realize when power goes out and things happen, garbage still has to move. And so we've taken steps. We're having a generator that can run the entire landfill, the scales, the pumps, and everything to keep the landfill operational with an automatic transfer switch. We're wiring two convenience sites, two of our largest and main convenience sites, to where they can also handle, if power fails to all the convenience sites, where those convenience sites can at least handle the compactors that are there with generators. The Great Falls War Memorial Building that should be used as a shelter for the town of Great Falls. We're going to make sure that it's prepped to be a shelter, and we're going to install, we've gotten some quotes, and we're going to move forward with installing, passing that, the ordinance with the ARPA funds last night. I'll use a portion that was designated for county facilities equipment and there to pay for a generator for the Great Falls War Memorial so that it will be fully operational. We're getting a quote for the courthouse to get, we have 1 cent sales tax money that was designated for courthouse improvements, and so we're going to get a quote for the courthouse to ensure that the courthouse has power in a situation like this, because if power would have been out downtown for too extended a period of time, there's still legal functions and things that have to go on, so it'll benefit us to get that back up and running. And we're taking a look at all of our pre, during, and post. We're doing evaluations on all of our processes, and we're implementing some written directives regarding what county personnel procedures for pre, during, and post, and then taking a look at all of our departments to assign people different functions to assist Mr. Darby with the numerous functions that he had that day. Lastly, on the storm, fees have been waived at the landfill for storm debris through October 26. We did that We'll waive those storm debris costs for our municipalities that are picking up resident storm debris as well as private citizens. And again, that's something that we are fairly sure, we know a portion of it can get reimbursed by FEMA. The individual portion, we just have to submit some paperwork, and we're going to work on that as well. But we've waived that fee. We had a Household Hazardous Waste Disposal Day this past Saturday, October 5th. Over 150 families participated, 7,200 pounds of paper shredding, and this is one of the best turnouts so far with regard to that. Lastly, Mr. Jeremy Ward, our planner, asked me that if I would share tonight that we are beginning the planning process for the new 2025 Chester County Comprehensive Plan. We want this plan to be written by the people of Chester County, for the people of Chester County, and so the first part is getting that input from the community. There's a survey available on Facebook, on our Facebook page, and flyers around the county government building, as well as other places in the community. And I believe there's a QR code on that. Is that correct, Mr. Ward?
Yes, sir. There's a QR code on the flyer. We've had over 100 responses in 24 hours, so very optimistic progress so far.
Great, thank you. We'll also have public input sessions around the county towards the end of the month and into November that we'll be announcing as well. So I just want to say that. With that, that concludes my administrator's report, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hester, for that report. And also, I'd like to thank all the workers that got out and worked, because I spent a little over 31 years with Duke Power Company, and I went through a good many of these storms working night and day and long hours, so I can empathize with those that's out there, and it does take some dedication and fortitude to do that. So again, thank you for all the workers in Chester County that and firefighters that participated in restoring our power and opening up roads and cutting trees, and first one thing and then another. So thank you again from Chester County Council on that. Okay, under old business, there was none. Under new business, we'd like to call Mr. Robert Long, our Economic Development Director, to give us an update on economic development.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about what's going on in economic development. The one thing I will say, in addition to the first responders, obviously, please thank the line workers. As Council is aware, there is a line worker program at York Tech that is unique to the Chester campus. So that is a growing program, and those folks are working 7 days a week, a lot of overtime right now, and we very much appreciate all the work they're doing as well. So what I thought I would do for this update is talk about where we are now in sort of a comparison to last year, just so to kind of give you perspective of kind of where we are. And there are some things different we're seeing now compared to last year. So I will say real quick, Karen's not here tonight. She's actually my assistant director. She's actually at the Battery Show. She's representing I-77 at that particular event in Detroit, Michigan. So she'll be back on Thursday. So unfortunately, she could not be here to help out this evening. And I will say also, when we close out our month, so for September, we close it out on the third Thursday of each month. So the report, that's the most recent report, is for the September report that was closed out on that Thursday a couple weeks ago. At that time, we had logged in 65 projects for the year. In comparison to the same time last year, we were at 69. So very similar, off just a few. That being said, just in the last 2 weeks, we've had a flurry of activity. We are actually up to 74 projects. We've actually picked up, I think, quite a few projects just in the last few weeks, a couple of which you'll be hearing about later this evening in executive session. So we've had a very busy few weeks as well. The one thing I will say is it seems like a nation, we've been for a year now been trying to talk ourselves into a recession. I don't see it, or at least locally. We have been very consistently very busy and continue to be busy. That being said, when I talk to a lot of my counterparts around the state, they have seen sort of a slowing down of some of their projects. Fortunately for us, that has not impacted us. We continue to be pretty busy at the moment. So real quick, when I say a project for us, just a quick definition for a project. A project for us is an opportunity for capital investment, indoor jobs for Chester County. That can be attraction of somebody new to our community. It could be an expansion. And on the rare instance, it could be a retention, because there are some times when projects are looking at consolidation and we could come up on the losing end of that consolidation. But just kind of give you that. Now, I usually kind of use the analogy of baseball, where it's 300, hitting 30% of your at-bats is considered a fantastic batting average. For us, if we bat 150 in a year and we land 15% of what comes across our desk, that could be a fabulous year depending on what projects we are able to announce. The one thing I will say that's been pretty consistent with us is the vast majority of the projects we work are direct leads, meaning that the company, the consultant, or the real estate broker contacted us direct. We've been pretty consistently over 60% of our projects are direct leads. I will say that's unusual. You talk a lot of the other smaller rural counties around the state, generally less than a third of their projects are direct leads. For us, it's about 2/3. And so far this year, we've been at 67%. 67% of our projects have been direct leads. Now, great, we are also always appreciative of our leads we get from the South Carolina Department of Commerce, or I-77 Alliance, or Charlotte Regional Business Alliance. But at the same time, we are taking full advantage of opportunities to attend trade shows, as I mentioned, where Karen's at, and other marketing opportunities to kind of get our message out there. And I think that does very much reflect in our numbers. I will say our leads from the South Carolina Department of Commerce are down a little bit this year, but that's also been offset by a pretty good uptick in activity from the I-77 Alliance, which is now about right at 20% of our leads so far this year have been from the I-77 Alliance. The other thing I will say is a bit unusual for us is, since I've been here 4 years, right at 4 years, well over roughly 95% of our projects have been attraction, meaning these are projects that are currently not in Chester County. We do get the occasional expansion opportunity, and as I mentioned, retention. But so far this year, we are at, I think, 97% of our projects have been attraction projects for our community, meaning these are companies that are currently not in our community. That being said, that does include the occasional project from York or Lancaster that's outgrown their building and they're looking at potentially expanding, and they give us a call to see if we have a site or building that works. And when they do reach out to us, we do log those in as regular projects. But we don't go, we call it poaching. We don't poach. I don't go actively marketing to York County trying to recruit companies. But if they do reach out to us, we do treat that as a project as we would any other project. So far this year, we've had one announcement, which was the Princeton New Energy. We did that back in June, a little over 11 million and 41 jobs. I will say we are expecting 2 to 3 announcements between now and the end of the year. We do have a couple of existing buildings that leases have already signed. We're just waiting for a little bit further in the process to formally make those announcements. I guess the one caveat I give there is not every project wants an announcement. Some folks really embrace and they want to do a ribbon cutting or groundbreaking, so forth. But we do have a lot of projects that just say, we're signed a lease and they'll just do their own thing, and they, don't necessarily want that big announcement. But we also do obviously reach out and offer to assist if they do want us to help them out. Talk a little bit about, we track projects by sector as well as by industry. So for sector, our bread and butter is and continues to be manufacturing. Most of the years since the previous 3 years I've been here, roughly 60 to 65% of our projects have tended to be manufacturing. This year, however, we are up. Right now, 74% of my projects so far this year have been manufacturing, so that's been an uptick. But some of that's been also that we've seen a decrease in logistics. Logistics, warehouse, distribution projects have previous year have been more than that 10 to 15%. Right now, it's down to 4%, and I think some of that is reflected in the economy and what's going on. But right now, the logistics projects are definitely down. When we look at industry, one of the areas we've seen fantastic opportunity really in the last 3 years, and it continues to be a big part of our activity, is projects related to electric vehicles, EVs, and that can be actual, like on the chemical side, that maybe that's associated with a part of the battery. It could be on the electronic components associated with that, or it could be an actual part for the actual machine, metal part for the actual vehicle itself. But nonetheless, when you look at EVs in general right now, it represents about 28% of the projects we're seeing right now in our community. The one thing, as far as in the second place, as far as where we're seeing activity, has been food and beverage. Right now, we've seen 7 projects this year. That represents 12% of our project activity. The interesting thing is I had 0 food and beverage projects last year. So we went, it sort of goes ebbs and flows. Last year was kind of an off year for that particular sector. This year, we've definitely have seen an uptick in food and beverage projects. And I will say a lot of our assets and some unique characteristics when it comes to rail, large sites, and if they have ovens and are cooking a product, access to our gas through our Chester County Natural Gas Authority does really line up. And we have continue to attend to some of those food and beverage related shows, but we have definitely seen an uptick in the food and beverage projects this year. We also do track projects by size. That's both capital investment, the size of the projects. Obviously, what our first goal is trying to grow the tax base of Chester County, and then we do track the activity as far as the number of jobs, so we can kind of get a handle on the scale of the projects. So we do go up to up to 150 million plus. This year, that represents 25% of our project, and I think that does reflect ongoing trend we see when it comes to automation. Automation tends to mean higher power consumption, but also higher capital investment for that automation. I like that myself, because generally what we see is fewer jobs but better paying positions for the jobs that they do have. I give the example of ICO. ICO, 363 million, 180 jobs. 10 years ago, that would have probably been flipped. It would have been probably 180 million and 360 jobs. But at the end of the day, folks and companies are continuing to add automation where they can, and at the end of the day, that adds to the tax base of the communities where they locate. The sweet spot, I would say, this year as far as project size is in that $10 to $50 million project range. Right now, that's right at a third of the projects we're seeing at the moment, and that's up a little bit from last year when it was about 27%. As far as investment levels, as far as not just investment level, but jobs. So right now, if you're looking in the 201 to 500 job category, that makes up a quarter of our project activity so far this year, which is up a little bit. It was 16% at this same time last year. But the sweet spot right now is the smaller projects, 11 to 50 jobs. That makes up 27% of our project, which is the same as the same time last year. One thing I will say, we've been pretty fortunate to receive a couple of accolades. So one is I did get recognition from the Charlotte Business Journal. I did make their Power 100 list, which is fantastic. I know, it's nice to be recognized and honored. They were supposed to have their reception a few weeks ago, and as we can all understand, that was postponed. I haven't heard the new date for that, and they may not have the new date, but nonetheless, I did have a chance to receive that recognition. And also at your tables, and we just got these end of last week, is Southern Business and Development Magazine, and we have a tab so you can kind of click towards the back. We were recognized twice. We were recognized as their co-small market of the year, us and in Florence County, South Carolina, and they have what they refer to as their SBD 100 list, and we also made that SBD 100 list. And then thanks to County Council, as well as some support with CDA, we did run an ad in support of that, so you do have a copy of that, and if anybody would like an extra copy, please let me know. I have a few with me, so it's nice to get that recognition. Lastly, we are winding down 2 different plans. One of those is our Economic Development Strategic Plan. That is being funded actually 100% by our Chester Development Association, which is a great partner. I literally just received the first draft of that plan today, and we are expecting to have that plan completed by the end of the month. So we look forward to sharing that with council very shortly. The other thing we have going on that is where we engage retail strategies. That particular cost, 2/3 of that cost is being paid by County Council. 1/3 of that is being paid by the Chester Development Association. We are expecting that about a month from now, early November, to have that initial plan done. And then once that is done, we are looking to add a retail section to our website. And then we will also start adding some of our prime real estate for both sites and buildings for real estate, retail development to our GIS search functionality as well. And we have actually started going to a couple of retail-focused shows. Karen went to a retail live show in Nashville a couple months ago, and in a couple of weeks, I will be going to ICSC Southeast, which is the International Council of Shopping Centers. That'll be in Atlanta, and then they also have a spring ICSC event that's also in Charlotte that we also will plan to attend. In closing, project activity has remained pretty solid for us. In addition to the, hopefully a 2 to 3 announcements we are expecting before the end of the year, we are pretty well positioned, for some announcements next year. The typical life cycle of a project, by the time we get it to the time they make a decision, is about 6 months. It can be longer, it can be a little bit less, but based on some of the projects we have in the pipeline where we have our finalists, our semifinalists, we are expecting hopefully some nicer, some announcements hopefully in Q1, Q2 of next year over the next 3 to 5 months. And with that, I will, ask if there are any questions of me. We appreciate the support of Chester County when it comes to economic development. And I'll say our future is very bright right now in our community.
Mr. Law, congratulations on your notoriety there and receiving those awards, and thank you for the hard work that you put in and putting Chester County in the forefront of economic development for small counties. I appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Law?
I'll ask you a question now, Will. So this magazine you gave us here has the GDP growth, the chart, and it breaks it down
By region?
by region, right? South, Northeast, Midwest, and West. And it's probably no surprise to anyone that the South is ahead of everyone else. It shows the Northeast 1.4% increase, the West 2.2% increase, Midwest down 1.7%, but the South is up 2.3%. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's going to be a continuing trend? What do you think is driving some of that?
So I think a lot of it has to do with business-friendly states, and most of the states in the Southeast tend to be a lot business-friendlier, whether that's, the way they handle projects, the taxation, the potential incentives they offer. And I think a lot of that has to do with the South has just garnered a really good reputation, has a really, not just South Carolina, but other states in our region. And so if you look at, I will say the one exception we have seen a little bit of is in the Midwest, particularly the Detroit, Ohio, particularly a lot of these battery-related projects, EV projects, that they've had a hot spot and they've had some really good success. Multi-billion-dollar chip manufacturing operation going on in Ohio. But, overall, I think a lot of it is the South is just where folks want to be. We're just a much business-friendlier environment that these folks seek out.
I too want to congratulate you on your recognition. It's well deserved. I always appreciate that you know your stuff, and we appreciate that. We see that. We saw it in your report tonight. I've always seen that in you. So thank you, and you say 4 years of being here in Chester County?
Yeah, this week is 4 years. Yes, sir.
Congratulations.
It's funny because you always leave us with leave me almost with no questions because you kind of answer everything as you go, in my opinion. So thank you, Robert. I appreciate it.
Brian told me to keep it pithy.
Say that again.
Keep it pithy.
That sounds like that, yeah.
Thank you so much, Council. I look forward to talking to you in executive session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Long. All right, moving along to boards and commission. Catawba Mental Health Board nomination. Ms. Erin Mosley would like to make an announcement on that.
Yes, sir. I would like to nominate Jessica Schmidl to the Catawba Mental Health Board. She and I have been involved in some opioid task meetings and things like that. She's always very informative and knowledgeable about the goings-on around here, and I think she'll be a tremendous asset for the Catawba Mental Health Board, and she'll be a good voice for us as well. So I'd like to nominate her, please.
Got a nomination. We need a second.
Second.
Got a second. Any questions or comments on that? Thank you for getting that. I know that's a hard board to get on, and it's a very important board, so we appreciate that. So all in favor of that nomination, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
So approved. Thank you. All right, moving along to number 11 on the agenda is executive session. We're going to go into executive session to discuss the matters of relating to the proposed location, expansion, and provision for services engaging locations or expansions of industries or other business in the area served by the public body in Project 2464. Under B, discussion of matters relating to the proposed location, expansion, and provision of services encouraging location and expansion of industry and other business in the area served by the public body, Project 2468, and discussion of matters relating to proposed location, expansion, provision of services, encouraging location and expansion of industry or other business in areas served by the public body, Project 2469. Also under D, discussion of personnel matter regarding human resources. And under E, receipt of legal advice relating to the tax increment financing district covered by the attorney, client's privilege. All right. And need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion, we go into executive session.
Need a second? Second. We're in executive session.